Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming back to the Velo podcast. My name is Mike Levy, and today I am talking to ultra distance racer Meaghan Hackinen. So the last time Meaghan and I spoke on the podcast, she had won the 2024 Tour Divide, which is, of course, the legendary 2,700-mile route that runs from the Canadian border to the Mexican border via the Continental Divide. Things didn't get any easier for her in 2025. It's not like she took the year off. The opposite happened. So Meaghan lined up for all three events of the mountain race series. That is the 1,300-kilometer Atlas that's in Morocco, the 877-kilometer Hellenic, that's in the Pindus mountain range in Greece, and finally, the Big Daddy, Silk Road in Kyrgyzstan that's over 1,900 kilometers. So today, I'm going to ask Meaghan a bunch of questions about how those races went, and most of it being just stuff that I want to know, to be honest. Meaghan, thanks for coming on the podcast. You had one hell of a year. I should probably mention that you also won the Hellenic and the Silk Road mountain race, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get all those facts into a short intro, but I did win, and I was second in Atlas, which, felt pretty good to be on the women's podium for all three.
You are the first woman to complete all three events, I think?
That's right, yeah, and that was actually one of my motivators to go after them, because a few people had done all three in 1 year, but no woman had, signed up. And it's a huge challenge logistically and financially and physically to get to three different continents and these three races. So, yeah, I was like, challenge accepted.
Nice. Yes, that's a good attitude to have, especially for your chosen discipline, for sure.
Yes.
So let's go back, maybe like winter of 2024, or whenever you decided to commit to the mountain race series. Can you take me back to that moment? It's a big commitment because these are big things that are far away. What was that like?
I think I was looking for something to do after the divide that was bigger than the divide. And there are things out there. There's other challenges. There's the Iditarod in the cold. There's the transcontinental across Europe where you self-navigate between checkpoints. Like there's no shortage of challenges. But I did want to have a bigger year than the divide. And I was turning 40 in January. So I kind of was like, well, it's time to go big, Meaghan. Like you're not getting any younger here. And the mountain races had been on my horizon individually for a while. Atlas is in February, so it's like a nice break from the Canadian winter. Hellenic is in Greece, in Europe, so I figured, check out some of Europe. And Silk Road was the one that I was interested in and curious about, but scared of because it's known for being at altitude and exposed. And there's all these like heinous river crossings and the chances you're going to get food poisoning are like 50-50. So yeah, that was the one that gave me pause, but I figured it was in August. So I'd have the two races to build up to it, to, accumulate some more cold weather camping kit. And I just figured like step by step, I would be ready when the time rolled around. So that's kind of how I dealt with it.
Yeah. I'm skipping way forward here, but this is the perfect time to ask this question. So the Atlas race, the Silk Road race, that was the last race.
Yeah.
If you had not done the Atlas and the Hellenic before that, do you think that the Silk Road would have gone as well as it did?
I don't think so. I think... Yeah, it's a really challenging course. And to register, you don't actually need previous race experience, but you need mountain experience, kind of being in these more remote places and being able to handle, situations like storms rolling in the evening or potentially frostbite and just dealing with, injury and sickness in remote areas. And I have some of that. I think the Tour Divide in 2024 was like a big stepping stone to get to the Silk Road mountain race. But I feel like every year on New Year's feels like it starts fresh a little bit for me. And I needed to have that experience this year. So if I didn't do those first two races, I would have had to do some pretty challenging test events to kind of put me through the paces and make sure that I felt confident enough to go there and do it. And I will also say that I arrived in Kyrgyzstan 2 weeks early to tour and acclimate and get used to the food and just kind of like feel comfortable in the place before being thrown into racing. And I think that was really important as well, especially since my bike arrived 48 hours later. So it wasn't, it was stressful, but it wasn't as
It's good to
stressful
leave
as it would
some
have.
wiggle room.
Yeah, definitely. My bike actually it was late for 2 of the 3 trips. So
Oh, good
I've
Lord.
gotten used to being stressed and watching the air pod tracker thing, whatever you call it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you have done some big things on your bike. You've won a bunch of big things. You've set FKTs. Uh, I know that you've been pretty successful in harsh conditions too, like whether that's heat dome conditions or whether it's extremely cold conditions. Um, but like, I don't think I'm out of line in saying that these mountain races, the Atlas, the Silk, and the Hellenic, they're obviously like very, very different beasts compared to what you had done previously. Um, so, given that these races are so chunky and they are so rough and it is so different, focusing on your body first, not the bike, what did you do to prepare for such different, demanding terrain?
I was going to the gym pretty regularly. I like the gym. I think it's like a
Yeah.
playground for adults. And I do dynamic cyclists, like stretching and mobility program pretty regularly to get a little bit of stretching in. And that all has helped me kind of be resilient. But in December, I crashed, not even in a fun way. I mean,
Oh,
crashing is never fun. I wasn't doing something like badass and exciting. I was riding in Portland to dinner and I signaled with my left hand and a turn came and I grabbed the brakes with my right and the bars twisted and I smashed my shoulder pretty hard and I rolled out of it. I was like, oh, I played roller derby. I'm good at falling. No worries. And the next day I woke up and I like couldn't lift my arm and I just kept telling myself it would get better, and it got worse until like I had a pinched nerve. I couldn't move. I was taking like a million, painkillers a day, and that was like mid-January, and I had to leave for Atlas in 2 weeks. And so then, of course, I go from denial to like losing my cool and just going to the physio and the chiro and the massage therapist, trying to get this kink worked out. And I was okay to race in Atlas. I had some back pain, I think, from not training properly in January. But after that, I really took my self-care and my like maintenance of my body seriously. I started seeing a physio every 2 weeks to kind of work on my weaknesses and build up my strengths and have that expert of the human body help me get dialed in for these events. And it's an expense that I don't have extended benefits. I'm a contract employee and I'm an ultra racer. So having to pay out of pocket for these visits was definitely an expense I hadn't accounted for. But I think really giving a lot of credit to the physio. And I guess I followed what she said to the T. If she said like, do this workout 3 days a week, I would be like ticking off those boxes and really, really trying to put my trust and faith that she could help me get strong again. So yeah, going to the gym, but then seeing these professionals really helped me. And I think just trying to remember that it's like, yeah, it looks like your legs are pedaling the bike, but the whole body is used, especially on the chunkier terrain. And you just take a beating. So if you're not strong enough, or if you have a weakness, like that's gonna show.
yeah. The soft tissue issues are the worst thing
Yes.
ever because, like you can't see them. It's like if I break a bone and the bone is sticking out of my skin, like, oh, I can see right there. That's why I'm sore. But the soft tissue stuff, like if you're anything like me, it's a lot of times it's such a struggle because it's like, I do feel okay-ish. Let's just hit it,
Yeah.
but what you described to me, it sounds like you have to treat yourself like a professional athlete, and you are a professional athlete, obviously. But when you treat yourself like one like that, that's like the way to move forward and heal and feel good about things. But sometimes it's easier said than done, I guess. Yeah.
It is for sure. And, it's hard in January when I wanted to be training for this event to be like going to all these appointments instead and doing these like really lame exercises that I was like,
Yeah.
this isn't what
Like
I
a two
need.
pound barbell. Like, I got this, but you got to zoom out a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I guess those professionals come in to advise us because like, I don't know. I don't know how to rehab a shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. It's doing these sorts of rides too, it's also been a wake up call. Like we all have from years of riding, we all have like little injuries and things like that. And you don't notice them when you're out for 2 hours and 5 hours or maybe a big 8 hour ride, But these things like your shoulder had to be sore during that first race, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. And because I got a new bike in January, I didn't actually ride it before the race, like at all, because I
Oh,
was so
Megan.
messed up. Yeah. So I rode my indoor trainer and I have my TT
Yeah.
bike set up on the indoor trainer. So I was riding
Yeah.
a different bike and doing workouts like just an hour or two to just kind of get the legs moving. So then I flew to Morocco. I hopped on this new bike, and I was touring, and I felt like okay touring, but again, I wasn't doing race pace. I was riding an hour or two and stopping for a tagine or something, and
Sounds
getting
great.
yeah, it was lovely, and I was really happy. I was like, oh, my shoulder feels pretty good, and then you start racing and Atlas starts at 6 p.m., so you basically ride 30 hours without stopping, and
Yeah.
that's a real wake-up call. I definitely feel like the struggle for that race for me was managing the pain, and I hurt that much in every event. I don't think I would continue doing what I'm doing, but you can kind of I could kind of manage it for the race, and then as soon as I got home, I was like, okay, we got to fix this. This can't
Yeah.
happen every time.
Yeah. I picture you just traveling to Morocco with like a 1 gallon jug of like Tiger Balm and you know what I mean? Just
Oh, yeah,
slather
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I probably could have got a massage en route too if I'd like asked the right
Oh yeah.
people, but you're just not thinking about that stuff. You're just kind of like, go, go, go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that first race was in February,
Yeah.
and as a fellow Canadian, I know how hard sometimes racing in February could feel like because I know there's indoor riding and stuff, but like the weather is generally shit. So can you give me like I don't need to know your training plan or anything, but just give me a breakdown of kind of like how you trained for that first race, given your injury and given that it was in February.
Yeah, I had a really good training block over winter holidays. So my shoulder it was kind of getting worse, but I was still able to kind of lock in and do it. And, I have a pretty supportive family, which is my parents and my partner at the time. And I don't have kids. So I was able to really focus on myself during those weeks. And then as we rolled into January, I trained like less and less. So I was probably training on the bike like 5 hours a week and trying to be upright and not have my hands on the bars. So I wasn't even
Mhm.
doing like hard intervals or anything. And then afterwards, just like hopping in the sauna or something. I was using the sauna a lot for recovery. And then, like, honestly, probably 5 appointments a week between the physio, the chiro, the massage, and trying to do stuff at the gym for my lower legs, but I couldn't do any upper body really. Yeah, everything kind of fell apart. I don't remember what my training plan said, but I did
Yeah.
not stick to it. And then I didn't even want to admit to my coach how messed up I was until she was like, "Hey, Megan, what's going on in these workouts?" And then this is my first year with like financial sponsorship, and I was like, "Do I tell my sponsors? Like, how much do I have to tell them? What's my obligation to them? Do they need to know about this injury? But they're giving me money to travel, so I feel like I should tell them because I might not be able to even go, but like what's the point? I don't know. What are they going to do with this information?" And then one of them was like, "Oh, we're going to send a photographer to your house to take some pre-race photos." And I was like, "You guys, I can barely move." But
Yeah.
then like of course I'm like, "Oh, yeah, of course, send them over." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Do you use like Zwift or Trainer Road or whatever?
I'm
Do you
a
spend a lot of
Trainer
time?
Road disciple. I have been on it.
Classic.
Yeah. I've been listening to
Yes.
podcasts forever. I like still want to know what happened with Chad. I guess that's an unanswered question in my life, and I'll just have to give it up.
We all do.
But I hear his voice in my head, like when I do the workouts still. And I started using Trainer Road in 2020, and I was actually on their like athletes podcast. They talked to me about the 24-hour World Time Trial Championships. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
quite cool. But I use Trainer Road, and my coach has been making the workouts for me over the past like year and a half. But I still
Yeah.
like use Trainer Road a bit. I probably don't need to anymore. I could probably get rid of one subscription service, but I just like every year when it comes up, I'm like, oh, but what if I don't know? I can't let
Yeah,
it
no,
go.
you sound like a professional athlete. That's exactly how it is. So before you go to an event like this, because all three of these races were new to you, I'm curious as to how much prep you do for these events when it comes to logistics and stuff. Like, are you, I'm interested in these races, so I go on YouTube and I watch, all of these people's videos, these POV videos and all this stuff, and I find it super interesting. Are you doing the same thing and like making notes and all that?
Yeah, for sure. I spend a lot of time when I'm on my indoor trainer in like the less intense rides, watching YouTube videos and scrolling through stuff on the internet and scouring for kind of information. Nelson Trees, the race director for the Mountain Race Series, puts together a really awesome race manual for each event. It's like 50 or 60 pages long, gives you the lowdown of the route,
Wow.
the hardest sections, kind of the elevation to expect, some notes on resupply, and then just kind of all the formal stuff like, the medical certificate you have to supply and the rules around media and all of that. So I would suggest to anyone who signs up for these races, read the manual and then like read it again. There's a lot in there and it's really helpful. And every race, there's been things that have surprised me. And I've kind of, gotten to the finish line and given Nelson heck for it. And he's like, it was in the manual. And I'll like go back to try and prove him wrong. And then I'll find it in the manual where he mentions this like terrible hike-a-bike that I guess I just forgot about. So that was really important. And because the race routes change every year, more for some than others, you can't fully rely on what happened last year. And I also feel like it's really inspirational to see people tackling these routes. But in terms of practical information, like a lot of these people making the video are like mid-pack racers. And so I'm going faster than them. So I am hitting things at different times, things that they find challenging, I might not, or vice versa. I'm not very good at the technical descents. And they might say like, oh, that was such a rowdy, fun descent. I really slayed it. And I'll be like, I almost died and I had to walk. So those things can be quite different. And yeah. But I do think it's really helpful that there is so much stuff out there on YouTube because for the first editions of these events, there wasn't. And so people kind of went in, especially for Silk Road, just blind. They're like, well, I'm going to race my bike in Central Asia over some big passes, I guess. And that's exciting
Could you
too.
imagine? Could you imagine just going in and raw dogging Silk Road race? Like, no, nothing. You just have the route and you're looking for a 7-Eleven.
And I think that was the first edition from people I've talked to. And Nelson didn't provide a route manual. He just was like, well, they're adults. They should do their research. And then people did stupid things and probably nearly died. I don't know, but I'm just guessing. So providing that information for people and really driving home like, yeah, it's above 3,000 meters. You're going to have to account for the altitude. There are river crossings that you can't do at night because they're so deep. Like, things like that where if you don't have as much experience in the backcountry or in the mountains, you might just be like, I'm just riding my bike.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So like, would it say in the route guide or the race guide, would it say like there'd be a river and it would say like literally don't cross this river at night?
No, I don't think it was that specific, but there.
That's what I need.
Yeah. In some of the Ridebook GPS files, there's information about specific crossings, not for Silk Road, but there was like I think some some photos from one of the river, like highlighting where the safe places to cross were. And it was definitely noted that the water level rises throughout the day. And in self-supported racing, you're not allowed to help other people. Like if you got a flat, I can't like lend you my pump. Otherwise, it disqualifies me and you. So it's very much about doing it for oneself. On the river crossings, they were kind of declared like a neutral zone. So 2 people could carry one bike across the river, come back and get another one. Or if there was a local coming through in like a Land Rover or something, you could be like, hey, can you carry my bike across for me? So that was permitted. I never made use of that. I was actually really proud to be able to manage all the crossings. And some of them were like sketchy and I fell a few times and definitely wasn't always like a safe, secure situation. But I was happy that I managed on my own. And I think, being able to come back from that shoulder injury over the course of the season to build up that upper body strength and manage like these uneven surfaces with water above your knee, with a bikepacking rig on your back, with food for 48 hours in a backpack. It was really empowering.
Yeah, no doubt. Wild. Okay. So, Atlas Mountain Race, it's in Morocco, 1,300 kilometers, over 29,000 meters of climbing. Absolutely insane. Could you sort of describe what is the riding like in Morocco?
It
What was
feels
the
like
course like?
it feels like you're on Mars. Like there's this red rock and these huge landscapes, and there's very few people. Once in a while you might see like camels or shepherds with herds of goats, and then you drop down into these oases every once in a while, and it's just like a totally different world. Palm trees and water, and like a little store, and people walking around. But a lot of it is just these Jeep and quad tracks, like crisscrossing in not quite the desert, but these like open rocky areas. And you notice I said rocks like 3 times, but
Yeah,
that's like
very
really what I
rocky.
remember because my shoulder would hurt every time I went over bumps.
That's fair, yeah.
And there's like these dried up riverbeds that you cross, and they're absolutely huge. I'm not sure if they're ever flowing, but the track enters it, and you're like, I don't know where I'm supposed to leave this riverbed. You're just like "Ooh," the whole way, and there are sections where we're going down the dry riverbeds, and I was just like, when, when will this part end?
Ultra
Um,
distance racing summed up right there, everybody. When will it end?
The course starts in Marrakesh, and we had like a police escort leaving the city at 6 p.m. So it was such a cool feeling. People are waving at us and videoing us. And then it goes straight into Telawet Pass, which is like 2,600 meters. And Marrakesh is maybe around 1,000 meters or something, maybe lower. I don't quite know. But it goes straight into this pass. And then it goes from like pavement to gravel to smaller tracks. And then there's like a goat trail over the pass, and there's snow. And you get there at like midnight, and there's like a little sliver of moon, and everyone's trying to find the track, and you're still kind of clumped up. But it was such like a wild experience seeing all these bike lights climbing over this mountain pass by the light of the moon, and a couple of the faster riders with more of a mountain bike background rode the descent. But I honestly have no idea. I was post holing like up to my thigh. It was completely wild. Yeah, and there was a full moon later on in the race, so the night riding was really, really a big part of that event because the nights are longer than the days. So it would get dark at like 6 or 7, and it would get light at like 8 in the morning. And there's a huge temperature swing from like above 30 Celsius in the day to below 0 at night. So bivvying out, and I ended up sleeping outside a lot. You just have to really bundle up and be prepared for those kind of colder nights. And then you start riding and you're freezing, and then by noon you're just like, dripping sweat, and your muscles are cramping, and you're searching for the electrolytes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. In a race like that, because it's so hot during the day and so cold at night, would you consider riding, like doing as much of the riding as you can through the night? Because then you're working hard, you might stay warmer, and then trying to sleep in the shade during the hottest part of the day? Or is that not
I'm
how to
like
do it?
kind of a fussy sleeper. So I think that strategy could work for some people. But I find that whenever like I try and sleep in the day, there's like flies, or it's too hot and you're like itchy, or it's just so far out of my circadian rhythm. And I am a
Yeah.
napper, but I think trying to get like a solid 4 hour sleep would be hard for me in the day. Yeah, I do think that like it makes sense. It sounds like it makes sense, and I've thought about it that before. Like I've been racing in the Balkans, and it's been again crazy hot in the day, lots of traffic and stuff, and you're like, wow, the nights are so much nicer. But it's just hard to fully flip your schedule. I think if you found a guest house or a hotel and could sleep from like noon till 4, that might be like a really good way to do it. But yeah, those guest houses never seem to appear in the middle of the day. It's pretty remote still.
Yeah. I definitely, that 6 p.m. start time, I think I would struggle with. Like it's one thing when you start in the morning, it feels normal, and then like with the circadian rhythm, but when you start it that late and go into the night, I feel like it has immediately sort of like messed up my internal clock a bit. And I actually find that quite challenging. I love riding at night, but I do find that quite challenging.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole point of it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see. That makes sense. Yeah. So, okay, you're in Atlas for the Atlas race. How much time did you spend solo? Did you ride with other people a fair bit or?
I rode quite a bit alone the first evening, leapfrogging other riders a bit. And then I kind of bumped into people on some of the longer climbs throughout the race. And we'd ride together and just up the climb. And then somebody would stop to adjust something or somebody would be faster on the descent. And, in the beginning, everyone's feeling a bit competitive, kind of pushing a bit harder and maybe not, you don't have the breath for a conversation. But
Yeah.
later on, when you're just kind of pushing through, I found it to be a really welcome chance to get out of my own head and chat with the people. And later in the race, you've probably seen the people around you a couple of times because you've been leapfrogging for the past few days. So you're starting to recognize their kit and things like that. And then at the checkpoints, I often ended up at the checkpoints around the same time as other people, but I'm usually trying to stay focused and get what I need to get done. That might be showering and washing my bibs and plugging stuff into charge and eating some real food and get out. So the time where you're talking with people is probably when you're waiting for your food to come.
Yeah. What was the sleeping situation like? You mentioned that you spent most nights outside. What was that like?
Yeah, I think I just love bivvying, and so I don't plan to stay
Why?
inside. I don't know. I'm just like a kid. I'm like, I get to sleep outside. This is so cool. So, and I don't like my regular bivvy setup is one of those emergency SOL bivvies, like the turkey baster bag. And I
Yeah.
had the same sleeping bag I used for Tour Divide. It's a Rab Mythic. It's rated to 0. And then I had a little roll-up sleeping pad, same one I used on the Divide actually, to give me a little bit of comfort and protect from the ground. I think the first, I slept outside every night except one night. I was at CP3, the third checkpoint. I got there at midnight. I had a pretty good push to get there. I thought I would be there earlier. And then there was this really long descent, and descents are the worst when you're tired, even if they're
Yeah.
nice. Like your heart rate slows and you just want to fall asleep. So I kept telling myself, got to get to the checkpoint, Meaghan. You need a bed tonight. You need a shower. I didn't need to charge my stuff because I was using a dynamo, so I was able to keep my electronics charged. But the thought of getting to that bed indoors, and this was probably around the 900-kilometer mark, was enough to kind of keep me awake going down the hill. But I was a little bit like, I don't know where I'm going to sleep in Morocco. It's a very different place, and I just don't know what that's going to look like. But the route was on pretty remote roads, so I literally just pulled off the route and walked, I don't know, 30 meters or something off course and would set up my stuff. One night there was a big rock and I was like, I'll sleep behind that big rock. And there was a sign that said camels crossing. And I was wondering all night if I was sleeping in the camel spot. And I would get woken up by hooves walking over to me. And you're not thinking straight at this point, right?
No, you're not. You're definitely not.
Yeah. And I saw lights passing a couple times when I was setting up and tearing down my stuff, other riders coming by, but no traffic on any of the roads. And I felt really, really recovered after a few hours of sleep on the side of the side of the trail.
In the last podcast, we talked about sleeping outside during the Divide, and we talked about being bear aware in certain parts of
Yes.
that race. We talked about scorpions in the desert and things like that. So you've had some things to think about, but I mean, I don't know anything about Morocco, but I don't picture grizzly bears walking around in Morocco, or there's nothing that's going to eat you at night, is there? I don't
That's
think.
correct. Yeah. I think the biggest nuisance is probably dogs. And there was dogs in all of the races this year. They're the worst in Greece, by far. But I guess I didn't want to camp in a town and have dogs come over and just check me out at night and be annoying. And I wasn't so much worried about that, but it would be a nuisance, or, if they're trying to get your food out of your bag or something like that. Or the barking, like I mentioned, I'm a sensitive sleeper. I wear earplugs. But I think I still would be annoyed if I was in town, and a lot of the towns, the dogs just bark all night, it seems like. So
Yeah. They're just talking to each other
I
about
guess,
stuff.
yeah, this is their time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think
Okay.
about scorpions or anything, but I feel like there could be scorpions. I don't know. I just didn't
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah, I would just assume there's scorpions everywhere.
Yeah.
It's better to be safe than sorry. Your 0-degree bag, was that warm enough? Did you also bring like down pants or anything like that?
No, I didn't. Just trying to be as lightweight as possible because there's so much climbing, right? So I had
Yeah.
some leggings and yeah, some like long leggings. So I would take like my bib shorts off and I would just pull the leggings on and sleep with those. And I had a puffy jacket, I had that bundled up. But I think it probably got to like -2, -3 Celsius at night. And I know, but I was only sleeping like 3 hours or 4 hours. So you're kind of continually dropping in temperature. And then when you get up, yeah, you're getting up and dressed really quickly.
Yeah. Being able to handle and sleep in the cold for these races is a superpower. So, last year at the BC Epic, I passed this woman. She was sleeping, I forget the name of the lodge. It was after I saw you, but she was sleeping up at this lodge, and it must have been like, I don't know, 3,500 feet or 4,000. It was really cold. Like, it was freezing. And she was laying on the outside of her sleeping bag in her bike shorts with her helmet on, fast asleep.
Whoa.
Like, I was wearing all the things, shivering while I was working, and she just looked comfortable, like relaxed. And I feel like I need some of that, because to be able to be comfortable in that sort of like cold weather, it is a superpower, because that's when you recover too. Yeah.
It is, yeah, and people often skimp on their sleep setup because it's one area to skimp, and it does take up a lot of space. I brought a more robust sleep setup to Silk Road, and it filled a 7-liter front roll, and it was just my bigger sleeping bag, my blow-up air mat, and a better bivvy. And I complained about it the entire time, but I needed it because I needed to be able to sleep, and it was even colder and potentially worse weather. I had good weather when I was sleeping, but I wanted a bivvy with one of those hoop poles that would, be able to kind of protect me a bit in a storm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I did take steps to like try and match my sleep kit to the area. And then in Hellenic, in the middle race, because I was like, oh, this one's really short. It's only 900 kilometers with 30,000 meters of climbing. I just brought the emergency bivvy. I didn't bring any sleeping bag. I brought my little mat, and then I lost my mat in forced prison and didn't get to use it at all. So I was just on the ground in this like reflective sack most nights.
Yeah. Okay. Atlas race, second place. You went in injured. How do you feel about that? Do you feel happy with how things worked out?
I am. Yeah, I'm happy with how I pushed through. I feel like the landscape was so bizarre and interesting. It really motivated me when things got hard. If it wasn't in such like an otherworldly place, I think I would have like had a harder time motivating myself, but just like being genuinely excited about what was around every corner kept me going. The woman who won, Mariah Moldenhauer, is so strong. Like she, even if I was at my best, she would have still like pantsed me. I don't know if that's the phrase. She would have won for sure.
I liked it.
And I guess I want to make that clear. Like I went in injured, I finished, I was second, but I couldn't have like had a hat trick in the mountain race series if I was, coming in strong. There was a big gap between us, and I think she put in the fastest time of a female athlete ever on that route, and like she slept like 3 hours in 4.5 days. It's incredible. She's like this 26-year-old ER doctor from Germany, like efficient, practiced, methodical, and just a beast.
Very
on
German
the bike.
about it.
Yeah, she gets shit done. So yeah, it was really cool to get to hang out with her a bit at the finish, and she commentated for one of the websites on Hellenic mountain race. So it was like an honor to be written about by her after. And then I listened to this playlist that she had made when I was racing Hellenic, and so I was listening to the music that she kind of procured, and she was writing about my performance along with everyone else's. And yeah, it's just interesting, these kind of strange ways we get to know each other in the digital age.
The circle.
I guess.
Like
Yeah.
the circle is like, complete. Like these people that you meet on these events like this, I mean, it sounds super corny, but when you're out there, like dying, basically, like there's like a bond, you know?
There is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the next race, Hellenic, I don't know anything about this race other than it was in the Pindus mountain range in Greece. Um, I saw that it's relatively short, 877
Yeah.
kilometers, but almost 28,000 meters of climbing. So it's a lot shorter, but it has a hell of a lot of climbing. What did you do between these two races? How was your shoulder? Did you change anything? Take it away.
Yeah, so I came home, started to rehab my shoulder. I'm riding a new Salsa Cutthroat, and I put a suspension fork on it before Atlas. But because it needed like a specific part to put the suspension fork on it, and I had just gotten the bike in January, my shop didn't know about the part. I think it was to adjust the brakes from like rigid fork to like a suspension fork. They just didn't have the part, and they ordered one. They ordered the wrong one. And so I got the suspension fork put on the night before the race, and I'd never ridden with
Okay.
suspension in my life. And I was like, well, let's see how this goes. And so I kind of figured out the differences, I guess, before Hellenic, and gotten a lot more comfortable on that bike. And I swapped my drop bars out for flat bars because there's so much up and down, and there's no flats, so you're not really using the drops as much. If you're like a good rider, you can descend in the drops, but I'm not that great of a downhill rider anyways, so I kind of felt like the flat bars would give me an advantage. And then when you're climbing, you're not really in the drops, so I just figured I wouldn't use them as much. And I think going to flat bars was a good choice. It was like weird for me to get used to my hands and my positioning. And I think I could have spent more time dialing in the setup. And I just kind of asked my bike shop, like, put some flat bars on here for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, change the brakes and stuff. But that was a good change to make for the bike. And I took off my aero bars. I always race with aero bars so that you have a chance to take the pressure off your hands. Like wrist and hand injuries are really common in ultra because you're just like always hammering your hands. So the aero bars are a little bit for aerodynamics, but more to take that pressure off your wrists. And I took those off for Hellenic because there was absolutely no flat, and you don't really use them unless you're on flat stretches. I tried to pack up my bike as light as possible, so I removed my sleeping bag, and I don't think I brought like a shirt to sleep in. I just wore my jersey all the time, and I did bring rain pants, which I guess were maybe optional, but I did get some pretty bad rain, so I was glad that I had them, even though they take up a bit more room. I guess those are kind of the bike changes. And I live in Kelowna, BC. There's lots of local mountain bike trails. So I spent more time, riding the trails, getting more comfortable on the single track and descending, because there's more of that in Hellenic mountain race. That's kind of known as the mountain bike-esque race. And I was excited about it, but it's out of my element. But I think that also gives you kind of like, okay, well, this isn't really what I'm supposed to be good at, because, I'm not a mountain biker. I like riding in the mountains though. So I'll just give it a go and see what happens. And
She
I
won
went
everybody.
I did. But I think part of the reason I did well was because I rode conservatively, and I, when I got to stuff that I didn't think I could ride, I would just like hop off and walk. And I took good care of my body and my bike. I wasn't getting flats. I got one flat, and I like fixed it with a plug really easily, but I wasn't having, like mechanicals, because I was trying to hammer the terrain too hard. And there were like a lot of mechanicals. There was a couple riding a tandem on it, which sounds unlikely. And they broke their derailleur, so they rode the tandem single speed from like checkpoint
good
1 to the
Lord.
finish, and they finished with like 12 hours to spare. So they're like just really,
Beasts.
really inspirational. They had to carry that bike like a ton.
Yeah.
And then I was in Europe because I was invited to lead a road cycling camp in Mallorca for like 10 days. So I went to Mallorca, and I hung out with all the roadies. It was so much fun. Beautiful place to ride. It was nice to be on like pavement.
Smooth.
Yeah, smooth.
Yeah. Meaghan, I have a question for you. So you've got a new bike. What happened to Amelia?
I gave her to my sister. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
so she's still around.
For sure. My sister and I started this cycling adventure together in 2009. We biked down the Pacific coast from BC to almost the tip of the Baja Peninsula. And she stayed involved as a commuting cyclist. She goes to her local bike co-op to like do repairs on her bike. And she's done some short trips from Victoria on Vancouver Island to like Bellingham and places across the border to go to, I don't know, dance events and visit friends. So she does like a little bike trip every summer. And I thought that she might like a bike that could get her off the pavement. So I gave her Amelia, tuned her up and brought her over. And we did a ride together in September, actually. So I'm hoping to get out next summer. She's in Port Alberni on Vancouver Island, which has like some epic Forest Service roads and great gravel riding. And so while she has some time off from teaching, I'm going to like drag her butt out on a bikepacking trip. And yeah, see how much fun we're going to have with our matching cutthroats.
You know, that bike really has seen some shit. Meaghan, right now is probably so grateful to just be like riding around Vancouver Island, living a normal life.
Oh, probably, Amelia.
Poor Amelia.
Yeah, she treated me really well.
But before we talk about the Silk Road, let's talk about your new bike. What is it? Well, it's a cutthroat, obviously, but it is completely new, completely different. You have a wireless transmission drivetrain. You have a suspension fork now. You have some light fancy wheels from Light Bicycle. Tell me about your setup. Actually, the main reason that I'm asking is for what you do, I think it's beneficial to be on the same bike forever, for like a long, long time. But obviously you need to get a new bike at some point. So you got this new bike and I'm just wondering, what that was like, because you said you didn't have much time on the new bike. So what was the transition like, and what was it like learning about your new bike?
For sure. It was really exciting. The last time I got a new bike was in 2016 when I got a road bike. So it was pretty cool because that's 9 years. And I had gotten 2 bikes in between, but I bought them both used. And so it was just kind of cool to have something like factory fresh and no one's touched it before.
Yes.
Everything's so shut. Actually, to be fair, my other 2 bikes like looked new when I got them. I just like put a lot of wear into them really fast. So I got it in early January and then, trying to build it up with the suspension fork and, get the wheels from Light Bicycle and put them on. And my bike shop did like all of this for me, I guess. But it's still a short timeline with flying out at the end of the month. And, I'm supported by Salsa. They're in the US, getting the bike across the border to Canada. And they just like, the mail people just left it on my doorstep. They didn't even like knock or anything. There's just this box that says Salsa on it. And I was like, how did no one have to sign for this?
Yeah, it seems expensive. Somebody should have to sign for this thing.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like the best thing to come home to, a new bike in your driveway. But I'm glad we have great neighbors and nobody ran off with it.
Yeah.
But getting that set up was a challenge. And I assumed that my old cutthroat was a 2018. This is a 2025, that they would fit exactly the same. But there's been some kind of bike geo changes and the triangle is a lot bigger. And then adding the suspension fork lifts the bars up. And I didn't account for all of that. And to be fair, like I wasn't riding as much in the winter anyways. So it was all, it was all just kind of like a lot for my body to adapt to. And I think I trained so much for ultras. I just feel like at one with my bike, and then not feeling that way was really throwing me off an Atlas. And I was also racing for the first time on Rene Hurst Fleecer Ridge tires. I was using those Light Bicycle WG 44 gravel rims. So everything was new. And I just didn't trust my equipment. And I had no reason not to trust it, but I didn't trust it because I didn't have the mileage on it yet. Like if I could rewind, I think I would probably keep Amelia for that first race of the season. I don't know how that conversation with Salsa would go. Like, so grateful to be a sponsored rider, but I'm going to go use my old bike because the race is too soon. But just riding a bike that was more comfortable, even though, every time I raced on it, I would have to like replace so many components. I was spending so much money on just like wear and tear kind of stuff. But that being said, like I really got to know the bike over the course of the season, and I wanted to use it for all 3 races and get to kind of like adapt it to the course. And it worked out really well that way. I wasn't sure how I felt about electronic shifting, but I really enjoy it. I hate fiddling with things. I hate fiddling with my stupid derailleur all the time. And I just don't. I just ride with it not working properly and not using all of my gears. And then I get to a bike shop and I'm like, can you fix this for me? And I will pay you money. And I don't have to deal with that with electronic shifting. It just like works all the time. And I'm sure people are going to be like, yeah, it doesn't work all the time, by the way. But I've had a really good experience with it so far. All of my races, I brought 2 spare batteries, and I just have the rear shifting, and I have 1 by up front, so I only need 1 battery in the bike at a time. So I'll have like 2 spares and the charger, and I try and, charge up a battery every time I have a chance to plug in when I'm indoors. And again, haven't had any issues. On Silk Road, I forgot to change one of the little button batteries in like the handlebars. And all of a sudden, like it wasn't shifting. And I kind of had to go through like, okay, what could be the cause of this? And then I was like, oh, right. Yeah, you haven't changed this
2032.
So, and I packed those in my toolkit, so there was no issue. I just popped it out, popped another one in. What are the other big changes? Yeah, I've really enjoyed the wheels. They're from Light Bicycle. They're nice and wide. I feel like they kind of help soak up some of the rougher terrain. And the tires have been great to me. I had 1 flat all year, and I was able to puncture it. I was able to fix the puncture without any issues. I literally could have like stayed on the bike. I hopped off and just poked it and gave it a few pumps with the tire pump, and I was rolling again. So that's like a best case scenario.
You had 1 flat in all year of this crazy shit you're doing. You had 1 flat tire? Using tubeless, obviously.
Yeah, that's because I hike so much.
Yeah, fair enough. But, that's like a smart way to race, fewer mechanicals and like getting a flat tire when it's raining. Like, Meaghan, I have 1 flat a week. You had 1 flat a year and all this rocky stuff. I'm impressed very much.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
so
I don't know.
smooth.
That's right. I'm so smooth. People, every race, there's somebody who gets plagued by flats and has this crazy story, like about hitchhiking into town to like try and find a spare tube somewhere, and like it's just wild. And I'm glad that didn't happen to me, but I do enjoy hearing these stories. And I replace my tires before every race, so that's kind of I try and change my chain, change my tires. Like I'm using that new like flat top chain, and they're really expensive, but they are so good. Like they last forever. I was like, I can't go back now. I am so spoiled.
Yeah. So I saw a photo of you earlier in the year using a suspension fork, and I said, it is about damn time she put a suspension fork on her bike. So now that you've been using one, is there a world where you take it off? Are you ever going to take that fork off again? Tell me no.
I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it right now. I have a Warbird Salsa's gravel bike, and I use like 44 mil like semi slicks, and I enjoy having that as like kind of a faster mixed surface bike, and I use it for a lot of pavement, so I kind of treat it like something between a road and a gravel bike, I guess. Because I do feel like the suspension fork is a bit heavier. Like it's slower in some ways. It lifts the bike up a little bit, so you're not quite as aero. But I think I'll have to like evaluate for every event that comes up. But for the races I did this year, for sure, it was the right choice. And I think as I age, I appreciate the cushion, and so much about ultra racing is protecting your body, keeping it, supple until the end so that you can keep putting out the watts, right? And I think the suspension fork does help with that for sure. And I've had some hand issues over the years, and like I don't want to be 60 and have hands that don't work anymore. And I feel much better with the fork on. Like I do the same descents in the Okanagan on the gravel bike or the cutthroat with the suspension fork. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is 100 times better. And
Yeah. It's, it's not about speed. Like even for normal people, like just on their gravel bikes and their normal rides, it's not about speed. It's about comfort and confidence.
Hmm.
And if you're more comfortable and you're more confident, you can go the same speed on the descent. You don't have to go faster, but you can recover more and relax more and just feel better. Like just generally, it makes definitely all the sense in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you put that really well.
Silk Road, the Big Daddy, 1,900 kilometers, almost 29,000 meters of climbing. Speaking of climbing, can you tell me about a 30-kilometer hike-a-bike and why and what that was like?
Yeah, this was one of the like oft talked about things was this 30-kilometer hike-a-bike. Silk Road is known for its hike bikes and its water crossings. There's always some hiking involved. Like I think that's just become a staple in the course. But Nelson was wrecking at the route and trying to find a way to connect kind of the southwest and the northeast, I guess. And he'd heard about this trail that like shepherds use to take the animals up and down to the seasonal grazing areas.
Doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So he recce'd it out, and it's in this like really remote valley. There's some yurt camps at the base of it, and then nothing after that. And it's like I was going to say it's a hiking trail, but it's not. It's an animal trail. And it's beautiful. Just it seems like, yeah, it seems like you're stepping into like the dinosaur age or something, except there's like no dinosaurs, thank God. But, it's very different than a lot of Kyrgyzstan, which is pretty open and exposed. Like this was greener and lusher, and you're always in this valley, kind of crisscrossing this river all the way up. And he had mentioned that there was like 3 water crossings, but there was like 50 water crossings. The first 3 are the deepest, but it just keeps crossing.
53, it's the same thing. Thanks, Nelson.
There's so many, but for the first 3, I was kind of like counting them down, right? I was like, okay, that's number 2, okay, and that's number 3, and then you're like, oh, I guess he forgot about the 4th, and then you get to the 5th, and you're like, I don't think this is stopping. And near the end, when the river has, decreased to like a trickle because it's coming out of the mountain or whatever, the route just follows it for like a few kilometers. And then it just goes straight up over the peak at like 4,000 meters. And your lungs are just like burning, and you take 10 steps and you have to stop and catch your breath and then like haul your bike uphill a little bit more. And then I had to walk down because my technical skills are not so great. So I walked like a couple K. It's a lot faster going downhill. And there's just like a whole bunch more river crossings and stuff. And then you're finally on the road, and it's some terrible old Soviet road that's like a rumble strip that you're riding on with a water crossing every, like, I don't know, probably quarter kilometer. Yeah. So it gets different, but I wouldn't say easier. I actually enjoyed the hiking. I got to the start around 8 a.m. I was prepared for it. I had a bag full of Stroop waffles and chips and all the cycling snacks I could throw in there, and just tried to keep moving. And I only ran into one other rider, Alex Kopp from Austria, and like it felt like kind of I just had the day to myself. And on these long rides, like saddle sores can be an issue. And I basically got like a rest day for my butt because I wasn't riding all day.
Good point.
Yeah, it would have been smart to like change out of my bike shorts and put something else on. But I still think that I did get like a break from the pressure there, and that was good considering I took
mindset, Meaghan. Looking on the bright side, I'm like 30-kilometer hike. Fuck no, and you're like, oh, it's good. Fix my saddle sores. Give me some time off the bike. That is why you're so good at these things. It's the positive attitude.
I guess so. I try not to be judgmental, and like it just is, right? It's not good or bad. It just is, and I've signed up for this thing. I think one of the things I've learned is about setting expectations. And if you expect something to be challenging and it is, you're kind of like, okay, well, yeah, that happened. There was another hike-a-bike through, I think it was called the Tranquil Valley Trail. And it was after like another 4,000 meter pass and some like bog walk. And it was really high and cold and exposed. And I thought I was going to get up over the next pass and descend to the village and be able to sleep, at a lower altitude. And then you hit this trail and you start your dreams start slipping away from you. And, a section where I hoped I would be doing 15 to 20K an hour, you're doing like 3 or 4 because it's so challenging and so steep, and it's dark and you can't see very well. And I had a dynamo light. So at night when you're walking the bike, that doesn't light up very well. So I have a headlamp, but it's still not, it wasn't great. You just are pretty disoriented and moving slower than you would be in the daytime, and being like, when will this end? Like,
Yeah.
what the hell is this doing here? Why are we on a hiking trail? But it's there for a reason. It's there to connect two parts of the course that wouldn't. There's not an alternate. There's not like, sometimes you'll be on a trail in other courses and there'll be like a paved road that you can see. And you're like, well, I could just be on the pavement. But in these cases, there's no alternate. This is like the way to connect these two things is through some obscure hiking or animal trail.
If you know that there's going to be, I mean, at least one of them was 30K and there was many other hike-a-bike sections, do you do any hike-a-bike training?
I am queen of the Stairmaster.
Yes. Okay.
I do the Stairmaster at the gym. I think I enjoy it. It's like,
Yeah.
it just kicks your ass, like 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and I am like just bleeding sweat. I love hiking. Like, I hike in the winter in the Okanagan until you have to put snowshoes on, and then I snowshoe. But I do day hikes, and I don't I don't go out into the mountains and hike. I just walk out my door, or I maybe will drive to like a Nordic center to snowshoe. So I do a lot of local stuff that I'm probably out between like 2 and 5 hours. So nothing that hardcore. And I'd never hiked 30K in a day. And then you add the bicycle to it.
Yeah.
And then altitude. It was from like 3,000 to 4,000 meters. So I've definitely never been up there before, hiking for that long. So it was very different. But, I think like going into with the mindset of like, well, I actually like hiking. And did you follow, was it the Arizona Trail Race this year where they like had that big hike-a-bike because they couldn't go through the Grand Canyon, which they usually
I was
hike
just
through?
going to ask you about that. I was going to say, now you're ready for the Arizona Trail Race.
Yeah. Well, like in the Arizona Trail Race, there's this, 26-mile hike-a-bike through the Grand Canyon. This year there was fires, so they couldn't do it. So the race director just threw in like a hike up a mountain to make up for it. So they left their bikes, ditched them in the woods, and then they had to hike up a mountain and back down to make up for the hike-a-bike that they couldn't do this year.
Oh, wow.
And it was like optional, but everybody
just
did
bonus.
it. Yeah, it's just a bonus hike.
Okay, well, that's one way to bike packers. You all aren't right.
I think that really showcases that. Yeah.
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 So you won Silk Road. Obviously, you're happy with how that went. Now, looking back at the race in hindsight, is there anything that you would do differently or that you could do better, or I don't know, takeaways?
For sure. The expectation thing that I mentioned, there were some sections that like I'd studied the route, but if I'd studied it more, I might have realized there was a trail there. And then having this mismatch of expectations versus reality was when I had more like frustration and I wasn't in a good mood. And when I'm not in a good mood, I slow down and I start snacking, and like snacking is fine in itself. But you can't be like stopping to eat. You have to keep moving. So I just felt like my pace slowed. And after day one, the only time I got past was when we were on these hiking sections, which was like really frustrating because I should be able to hike at the same pace as the men. And I am just choosing not to because I'm grumpy for some reason. So yeah, I got passed in the bog by this rider from the UK, and his name was Ashley, and he was like, yeah, I did a lot of this in Scotland in the Highland Trail. And I was walking and he was bog riding, and I was just like, how is he staying upright? Like his pedals are going like this. And I just don't have the control of my bike to do it very well. I found that exhausting, and I just found it easier to walk. But I was going a bit slower, and so I got past. And I think I maybe didn't sleep enough at the beginning. I tried to push the sleep envelope a little bit too much and realized that with altitude, the fact that it is such a long race, I needed to sleep more. And I was able to shift my mindset and get a bit more sleep, which was beneficial. I felt like I rode faster and stronger, and I could handle the challenges with more like mental dexterity. But maybe the first couple nights not sleeping enough, maybe I should have tried to sleep more earlier on. And then I just think as the race goes on, your efficiency starts like falling apart. So that's just have to be continually reminding yourself to remain focused. And I had a harder and harder time doing that at the end, like the last day or two. I was just like, this is a joke. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I am so confused right now.
You're not selling bike pack racing to everybody right now.
Oh, yeah. But okay, Silk Road is incredible. And bikepacking in Kyrgyzstan it's just, I would say it's got to be one of the top destinations in the world. Coming from North America, it is difficult to get to. I think it was like 3 flights and I had to drive to Vancouver, but and then my bike was delayed. But you can ride out of Bishkek and be on this route called the Celestial Divide and just in the mountains in a couple hours in a completely different environment. There's so many awesome gravel roads. There's a few like designated bikepacking routes, but you can just kind of wander off into the mountains. You can wild camp anywhere. It's very safe. It's an awesome place to bike pack. I would totally go back and do. I would probably race the Silk Road again, but I would definitely spend more time bikepacking in Kyrgyzstan.
What a cool name for a route, the Celestial Divide.
I know.
I love that. That is really neat. Like that in itself makes it sound like special and neat. Yeah. Okay, so you've done the 3 races. It's 2026. We're going to jump forward. Do you want to do them again?
I might do them again in the future, and I don't. I haven't gone back to too many races, so I think I need a little bit of time to think about that. But there is a new mountain race, and it's called the Taurus Mountain Race in Turkey. That's going to be in October 2026. So my intention is to race that one so that I can, have the full series done. And I haven't visited Turkey. It seems like a really cool place to bike in the mountains. So I'm going to try and plan like a 2-month trip around that because it'll be at the end of my season. And looking forward to some more Nelson surprises.
Yeah. Okay. A couple more questions before I let you go. I asked you this the last podcast. I ask every bike pack racer this. Did you see anything weird at night during all of those races? You knew I was going to ask you this.
Yeah. No, just the moon this time. Just the moon.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good thing. My last question. Let's say you're talking to somebody who is considering going to do one or maybe even all 3 of these things. What sort of advice would you give him or her?
I would say do some preparation, read the race manual, think about how you're going to dial in your bike. But once you're out there, it really just is a bike ride. You're just riding your bike and then riding it a bit more. Except for the bike walking, yeah. And it's not all that complicated sometimes. It can be, and sometimes you're struggling to, think about when you're going to get your resupply, or you might have a slow leak in your tires. I mean, not me, but you might have a slow leak in your tires.
I will have a slow leak in my tire or a fast leak.
So things can get complicated. But essentially, it's just like a bike ride in some of the most amazing landscapes on this planet that we live on. So, just thinking about it in simple terms and trying not to overcomplicate things. And I think that's one of the things about bike pack racing is when you're fatigued and tired, you just kind of shut off, except what is in your immediate vicinity. And that feeling is, it can be really joyous just getting to immerse yourself in the landscape and not think about all these stupid human problems that we create for ourselves. I mean,
you're only thinking about surviving and the river crossing and the hike a bike, and it simplifies things out there.
It does. Yeah. So do your prep so that you can enjoy the race. And the race is just a big bike ride with some hiking.
That is the right attitude right there. All right, Meaghan, thank you so much for your time. Everybody that's listening, definitely keep track of Meaghan. I'm sure she's going to be doing some absolutely crazy rides in 2026. Meaghan, thank you for joining. That was a great conversation, and I definitely learned a whole bunch about doing the mountain race series. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Bye.